Well, let's start with the question that I think a lot of folks still have. I don't know if you have an answer for it definitively yet, but you've expressed interest in the possibility of running for governor in 2026. Are you running for governor in 2026? Do you know if you're running yet?
Well, I'm taking a good look at it, and I've had Iowans encouraging me to consider running for governor, so it's under consideration is what I'd say.
Do you have a timeline for when you want to know, not just for people that are voters, but just yourself in wanting to make a call?
Well, governor is a big job in our state, and it's something that's important to all of us. Thinking about important issues like taxes and property taxes, how to grow our communities to make sure that the Iowans who have left our state can come home and find a good job and a good place to live, as well as improving education. So there's a lot to think about. I don't have a specific timeline.
Sure. You mentioned that, and since I graduated college, I've been hearing about trying to get Native Iowans back, and you hit on a few of those things. How important has that been now, not quite 2 years into your tenure as Attorney General, of the litany of things that you handle on a daily basis, but also, people love it when the relatives come home, and it'd be great to get more Iowans back in Iowa. How big of a tentpole has been that for you in your work daily to get Iowans coming back to Iowa?
Well, we want to make sure that every Iowan has a good job and a good career, good education, and that those who have left the state have opportunities where they can come back and join us. And it's something I think about as a mom. I want to make sure that Iowa is a place where my family can stay and continue to grow. We've got great communities, great neighborhoods. We want to make sure we have some good opportunities for people to come back home who may have left.
For sure. You spent your day, started your morning in Black Hawk County. You were talking with law enforcement there about laws that have recently passed and about the cold case unit that you've launched over the last few months. We just had a cold case in Lynn County solved not too long ago. It sounds like maybe investigators were already working on a suspect, according to court filings, before your unit was launched. Tomorrow marks 30 years since Jody Huisentruit's disappearance, maybe the biggest cold case in Iowa history. What have you seen so far in launching the task force and getting an even brighter spotlight on these cold cases, not just when the anniversaries roll around, but every day? We know on any given moment, one little tip can crack a decades-old case.
Well, as a prosecutor, our cold case unit is so important to me. We need to never give up, never forget, always be looking to bring murderers to justice. And I want the families and communities who have lost a loved one to homicide or suspected homicide to know we never give up. And Jody Huisentruit's anniversary coming up, that's a reminder for a lot of us. Her disappearance made a mark on our lives as something that we all remember, but there are other cold cases too. And I have to say this community, Lynn County, has done a fantastic job of solving cold cases. There's been a real effort, even before our statewide cold case unit, some great cold case victories that you have had. And they're so important because we don't want anyone to get away with murder. And we want people to know that everybody matters and we're always working for justice. And you're right, just one little tip can be the thing that breaks a case. So if anybody has one, reach out and make sure we've got that information.
Yeah, one little tip, or wait 40 years and wait for technology to catch up. The breakthroughs with DNA research and analysis there, as a former prosecutor, to see really, just in the 10 years of what something from 1981 can reveal in 2025, as a former prosecutor, I'm sure it marvels you of what can be a breakthrough, and just the patience that you sometimes don't want as a prosecutor. You want to get things done, you want justice as swiftly as possible, but I imagine as a former prosecutor, the breakthroughs that you see is pretty compelling.
Well, the technology breakthroughs are incredible. It's also helpful to have that passage of time, because sometimes people will come forward, maybe they have different friends or they aren't afraid of the perpetrator like they used to be, and they also realize how important it is that families have answers. There are some families who have lost a family member to suspected homicide that never did get a body to bury or a way to lay their loved one to rest, much less answers about who did it to them and what happened. So it's just important that people come forward with any information, and I'm glad that we have our statewide cold case unit always turning over those leads, working with our law enforcement partners at the state and local and federal level to bring criminals to justice.
want to switch gears to law enforcement. We'll stay there, but Winneshiek County Sheriff Dan Marx, you are currently in litigation against him for his comments on Facebook about how he would handle some immigration initiatives there. I believe it was a two-prong request you had for him was to remove the post about that and then share some dialogue and some words that you shared. He's done half of that. The litigation continues. Why is it important for you that even though the verbiage has been removed, the replacements still happen?
Well, as Attorney General, it's my job to enforce the law and to follow the law. And the legislature passed a law that does not allow any county to be a sanctuary county. So they have to honor ICE detainers and others of that nature. There's also a requirement in Iowa's law that they not discourage enforcement of immigration laws. And so that's the key part here. That's the part of the law that I'm enforcing, not just to take down the post that clearly discouraged enforcement of immigration laws, but also to make it clear that his county does uphold the immigration laws, does follow Iowa code. And once that's done, we dismiss our case and the whole matter is concluded.
Does it need to be your words? Could he put it in his own words? Is just anything? Is that what you're looking for?
Certainly, it could be phrased differently. We gave that as an example so folks would understand what we're looking for when we're talking about not discouraging enforcement of immigration laws. So yeah, it could be written differently. The point, though, is to be clear that in Iowa, we don't have sanctuary counties or sanctuary cities. We follow the law. That's what the legislature said when they made the law, and that's the law that I enforce.
Big thing last election year was finding non-citizens and people that should be voting in these elections. I know there was just charges filed yesterday, I believe in 6 different cases, as Secretary of State Pate works on those issues as well. What have you seen in the months past in making sure the folks that have the rights to vote in Iowa are the ones who are able to cast the ballots?
Well, it's really important that we have election integrity here in Iowa because elections can come down to just a few votes, and we want to know that elections are decided according to legal votes and that no illegal votes are mixed in. Iowa law and federal law require that someone be a U.S. citizen to vote. And so my office, over the past few months, we've filed charges in 6 cases that were investigated by law enforcement to enforce that law, and we will continue to do that. And as cases come to our office after they're investigated by law enforcement, we take a look at those and see if the standard for filing charges is met.
Do you feel like there's progress been made in the last few months? Again, you don't want to be scrambling in October of 26 to see if this is going on in 2025. I imagine this is the time where you're really making sure you're taking those steps. Have you seen that so far?
Well, number one, we want to prevent any illegal voting, and we want to make sure that people understand they need to be a U.S. citizen to vote in our elections, or it's a crime. So we'd like to prevent the problem in the first place. Iowa has good election integrity. I think as a state, we do a good job of making sure our elections are safe and fair. But there is no amount of an illegal vote that should be allowed. We should be careful and we should hold people accountable for that. So we've been working through that. One great thing that's happened is the federal government is now cooperating with state government to let us know who is and isn't a U.S. citizen so that the law can be enforced, and so the process works better.
Yeah, I believe Secretary Pate just got that clearance last year. Well, you brought up, speaking of citizenship, the Supreme Court, tomorrow we're expecting rulings from them. One of those is birthright citizenship, maybe the most anticipated ruling that they're going to have. What are you expecting tomorrow? What is your view on that of birthright citizenship?
Well, I learned a long time ago as a lawyer to never try to guess what a court is going to do. So I'm waiting along with everybody else to see what our U.S. Supreme Court will do when it comes to birthright citizenship and some other cases that are before the court. So we'll see what it comes out, and we'll read it and see what it says. I do think it's important, though, to note that no one should be rewarded with citizenship for breaking the law.
But isn't that a person who's born, though, is that they're not breaking the law, they're entering life,
right.
Correct?
Right, yeah. If someone's born in the United States, they're a U.S. citizen.
There you go.
Yes.
All right, well, speaking of the federal level, you were one of 10 attorney generals that didn't sign on in this federal AI bill, part of the big budget bill out there. Iowa's got its own AI regulations and bills it's looking at and legislation. What was your reasoning for not signing on to the federal level on the budget bill there?
There were a number of letters that were going to Congress, and I certainly took a look at them. I ultimately didn't sign on to that one. AI and artificial intelligence issues are things that are I'd say the next wave of some of the issues that have been coming up. But I didn't think it was appropriate at this stage to weigh in on that piece of legislation. It wasn't a court case or anything like that,
Sure.
but it is something that I do keep an eye out on as Attorney General, because there can be frauds and other things that are perpetrated using artificial intelligence. It can be a good tool. It can also be one that is dangerous.
I'm sure as an Attorney General, but just as a public figure, artificial intelligence and what people can post and what people can accuse somebody of doing or saying, and boy, the line continues to blur on videos you see on social media and whatnot. I just imagine, as somebody who's been prosecuting and working as Attorney General, it's that line blurring more. It can raise a lot of issues, especially as we get into another election season in a year and a half.
Well, we are seeing artificial intelligence sometimes used by con artists and scammers too, and they do this to steal money from Iowans under false pretenses. So it's something that we keep a close eye on. Yeah,
I mean, we hear almost monthly about another scam, and it just, they get more and more refined, it sounds like. A new opioid settlement money, $38 million or close to that, just in the last week or so. Just what is that going to be able to do as we continue to battle that problem here in Iowa? Because it's, there's a lot of work to do.
Well, we just announced a big settlement in our lawsuit of $38 million from Purdue Pharma and the Sackler family, some of the people that caused a lot of the problems with the opioid epidemic. Half of that money will go to local governments as part of the settlement. Half of it goes to the state. And this money can be used to prevent addiction, to treat addiction, and to help people recover. It's going to go to some good causes.
What have you seen so far in your time in office of just the progress that is being made? Because it can be incremental. It's a tough uphill battle, but $38 million isn't a drop in the bucket. That feels like that can go a long way. What have you seen so far with the funds that are there?
Yeah, well, addiction is very difficult. And it's a problem, though, that is worth all of our energy and all of our effort, because it is so tough, and not to mention that opioids are the leading cause of death for young people all across the United States, including a place like Iowa. Yeah. So it's something we have to constantly work on. The funding is just being deployed with the way that the legislature has passed a law to make that happen. So you'll be seeing that over the next year or two.
And we're looking ahead to next week, the 4th of July weekend. Again, we're going to be a year out from the 250th celebration of America. President Trump says he will be at the fairgrounds. He's been talking about that for a while. It sounds like you will be in attendance with him.
Yes, I was invited to be there as well, and I'm looking forward to it. We're coming up on the 250th anniversary, and it's very special that Iowa is the one to kick it all off.
If you do decide to run for governor, do you expect the president to endorse you as a candidate?
Well, that's not something I'm going to talk about right now, but I do appreciate the work that President Trump has done and was glad to endorse him when he ran for president, so I'd be glad to have his endorsement.